As any good human-centered designer will do, when Ruben asked me to give a talk, I went out and conducted some ethnographic research. I built a customer journey. No, I didn't do all that. But I did talk to a few folks to get some ideas about what would people that are mid-career or practicing service design or students, what might they be interested in what I would have to say. And I talked to a few of my colleagues, Monica Tizmaneski, who was at Chick-fil-A that she was just talking earlier. She's a great lady. You should, if you're in Atlanta, you should definitely look her up, meet up. But so if you don't like my talk, it's her fault because I got some ideas from her. But really, the feedback I got was it'd be great to hear some of your background in working for these 2 Fortune 50 companies, and what was it like? What was different about the teams that you've either worked on, led, or helped build? And so that's what I would like to do today. Ruben did a pretty good job of covering my bio, so we'll kind of skip over this. I just wanted to say that it has been about 50-50 split. I've worked on a lot of with design firms, boutique design firms, interned at Doblin, and then management consulting firms with Arthur Andersen. So I spent about the first half of my career doing consulting work, and then moved into the corporate world. And it kind of happened that Melody Roberts, who is sitting here on the front row, was looking to come. Dennis had brought her to McDonald's, and they were looking to build the team, and she called me one day and said, what do you know about experience design and service design? And I shared what I knew, the little that I knew, and she said, well, we're interested in building a practice here at McDonald's, and we want to learn more about it. Would you like to come help us? And I said, sure. And so that's how I wound up in Chicago and McDonald's. And what I want to do is kind of compare and contrast a little bit today these two organizations that I've been privileged to work for, 2 really great brands, and it's been a lot of fun. And so, I'll start with the McDonald's group, but I'll just share a little bit of like what was a little bit different about the two. The first thing that I experienced was we were really a small team, a small CX team that was growing. We were looking to grow at McDonald's, and we did that very organically, as opposed to when Lowe's called. They were looking to really build a standalone CX organization, and so it was a little bit different. They were looking to grow really big, really fast. Another difference was I was working on as part of a global team at McDonald's, and at Lowe's it was very U.S. focused. They had stores in other countries, but the CX organization lived in the U.S. Area. And as I was mentioning, kind of this very intentional organic growth versus they were looking to accelerate and everything that we were doing. They said, "Can you do this faster? How much sooner can we have this? Can we stand up this organization inside of Lowe's?" One of my favorite phrases that I learned right away at McDonald's, Dennis Weil used this idea that you could sprinkle design fairy dust everywhere that you went and sort of embed the kind of DNA of design into the organization that way. And that was a little bit of the approach we took. At Lowe's, they were looking for a full cultural transformation. They were asking to really change. They wanted to become something different than what they were organizationally. That was a little bit of a different charter than when I first started McDonald's. And then something a little bit different about how we delivered results and delivered things. Because it was a global team and because we could not design, we were too small, we could not design for every single market, we would deliver design principles and design intent, experience intent. And we would do that through showing simulations and through proof of concepts and mock-ups. And then it was up to, we would still work with and give design guidance, but we would work with the markets to help them localize that in some cases. But we were really, sometimes we did final design, but it really wasn't focused on that. Whereas at Lowe's, it was very focused on how do we get these solutions, this omni-channel experience, how do we get it on the path to commercialization? And we, as a team, were working on, with marketing and everyone else on what are the final designs and what do they look like. All right, so we'll jump right into McDonald's, and I wanted to share a little bit of work from both companies so you can kind of have some context for the type of things that I was doing. I will say that I would describe it as one of the biggest learning parts of my career. It was a really great experience. The culture at McDonald's was great. And I was also working for some really great folks. And Tim Brown had this to say about an article that was written in Fast Company about the team. And really, I think what they were talking about here was Dennis and Melody were really smart people. They were really great, though, about really coaching us on kind of checking our egos at the door a little bit when we were bringing in outside consulting firms, working with extended design partners, that treating experts as experts. And I think that was being talked about earlier. And I think that really helped make the team work well together, even though we were maybe consulting plus in-house design. But because we really appreciated one another and appreciated the expertise that everybody brought, we worked really well together. And Melody taught me a lot of other things as well. And I'll just mention 3 of them right now. So one was that naming is framing. And I think you coined that frame, right? But I learned it from her. And it's been very true. And it really helped in trying to take a business challenge and reframe that into a design challenge, and using ways of statements and things like that. The second thing that I learned from her was that, and it's really it's the DNA of design thinking, right? Which is you learn by building, you learn by making things quickly, and that was something that I was sort of inclined to do anyway, but it was really it was important in the work that we did that the McDonald's was a prototyping culture, and so it was important that they see things come to life quickly, and that we didn't spend a lot of time researching and sharing our research. They didn't really want to see our process or anything like that. So that was an important learning. And then the third one was, and this was probably the most important in my career, was how to spend other people's money. And so that was really valuable in getting work done at McDonald's, and I took that to Lowe's and was quite, I sort of became known for, if you need to get your project dollar spent by the end of the fiscal year, talk to Jeff Pollard. So at McDonald's, I think we've been talking about this a little bit this week, that it's really not a customer journey. It's a web, it's multiple customer journeys, and that's exactly what we were dealing with at McDonald's. We had drive-thrus, we had in-store experiences, there were curbside, we had different ordering methods that were, some of them were online, some were mobile, some were in the drive-thru. So we weren't designing the whole entire system all at once. We were working on elements of it, and that was important though, and you'll see sort of the difference between what I was trying to do at Lowe's and what we did at McDonald's. That kind of impacted the organization. And I think this was the right approach at McDonald's, was to sort of work across these multifunctional areas at the times that they needed design help on a certain part of the experience or component. One of the first things that I got involved in when I started was doing some job design work. In fact, I think that's when I met Ruben, and we had 2 meetings. And then he announced that he was leaving. So I don't know what I did or said, but I'm sorry, Ruben. But we started to think about how we could prototype really quickly service gestures and ways of interacting between employees and customers. And I brought in an improv team called Riot Act out of Chicago. They were part of Second City, and they helped us think about, like, well, how could we really in a fast-paced way with a coach and some of our own employees, how could we come up with some really great interactions that were physical in nature, that you could see, that you could measure, but also communicated and conveyed some kind of really nice gesture. And they turned into, you can see the gentleman who's kind of improving that thing that we would see it several times and go, that was nice. And then we would work with our employees, and you can see her handing that bag through the window, kind of cradling the bag. We also tested and explored with some things like, we worked with Byron from Dramatic Diversity, and he helped us with this idea that you could make, how do you make products considerate or products and services considerate? And one of the ways we did that was to act out different elements of machinery or different elements of equipment. And so you can see Peter Rivera-Piola, who's also here, I believe, and has had a great career at McDonald's. I love Peter. He was able to, he was like, whatever the crazy guy over here says, we'll try it. And so you can see him acting out a piece of equipment that I think later turned into this new interface and interaction design for a piece of kitchen equipment. We were also very much into designing digital interactions. Most people don't know that about McDonald's, or at least they didn't back in kind of back in the day. But we were doing online ordering and delivery in other parts of the world, like Singapore and China and Hong Kong and other parts of Asia. And so we were coming up with some of those design principles and for interaction. And we were thinking about them as a visual design language across the system and how we could make those sort of work together and think about all the different channels, how they might start to work together and be designed as a cohesive system. Here's another example of this new part of a service delivery in store where customers didn't just order at the register and stay there. They now received a ticket, a number, and they moved on, and they watched for their order number to appear, and then they would walk up and receive their order. Another part of digital that we worked on that I had the opportunity to kind of explore was a new digital menu strategy for the global system. And it was a lot of fun, and this was an opportunity to use that reframing because the US business came to us and said, we want to add more product to our menu. Our menu is growing, and we're like, really? There's a lot already. And so one of the ways we reframed that was to think about it in terms of how might we simplify the menu but grow the access, enable more access to the menu items. And we did that through some different animations and through a little bit different organization, some graphic elements. So what you couldn't hear there was you were sort of hearing some birds chirping. It was kind of like morning sounds, waking up sounds, trying to kind of alert customers that, hey, it's about, like the menu's about to change. One of the things that we were looking at was, could we make that experience better, where a lot of times you would get up to order your breakfast and they were rolling the menu manually over, and they'd be like, oh, we lost it. I can't get my sandwich anymore. Now, of course, today with breakfast being served all day long, it doesn't matter. But back then that was an issue. But an operations friend of mine said, hey, can we try something where we make that time a little bit longer? And I was like, sure. And she said, and can we play it in the back of the kitchen? I was like, yeah, let's talk about that. So she had this hypothesis that based on some things that she had seen while we were doing this test, that it was helpful to the employees to also know about this kind of lunch, breakfast day part changeover. And sure enough, we had video of when they would start to, about a quarter till the menu changed, you'd start to hear the birds chirping and a rooster crow, and you'd see the people in the back doing the happy dance, because breakfast is really hard. It's a really hard day part, and they were excited that it was time to start shifting over to lunch. This is just some other examples of digital interfaces where we were taking existing touch points where it was hard sometimes to confirm an order and completely rethink and redesign the interface. So this is an LCD screen that's in the drive-thru where you can watch as you're saying your order, and people are actually able to confirm, yes, that I do have the chicken with mustard. And oh, by the way, instead of interrupting them, we were just giving them little clues like you need to choose a drink at some point. And so that's what the red bar represented. We were also looking at the overall kind of drive-through experience, which we were trying to make it fit into the visual design language, but also be a better directional signage for pulling people in and to get their food brought out to them curbside. And then we were experimenting with mobile ordering and prototyping different both in-store and drive-through experiences when you could put your kind of order ahead of time, and we would do a check-in when you got to the location, and we'd prepare your food. And that was in a couple of stores, and then eventually went to a pilot in Australia and France, where they, I think, rolled out to the entire market. And now they're starting to do pilots, I think, here in the US. And then we were also very much looking at the employee experience of being outside in the drive-thru. Operations was looking for how they could speed up the drive-thru, and they were doing that by having people with handheld order takers. But the experience wasn't great, so we were looking at for either the employees or the customers, and so we were looking at what were the main elements there that actually improved that experience. So I didn't show everything, but there's a little bit more to come about McDonald's. But how many of you are familiar with the global service jams that happen? Yay! All right, great. So if you don't know what that is, or if you haven't been involved in one, I just wanted to demonstrate. This was one of the first service jams here in Chicago. McDonald's helped sponsor it, and Byron helped lead, and there were several of us from the community that worked with students, some practitioners, and some businesses that were excuse me, interested in learning more about service design. And the idea is that you get together for 48 hours on a weekend, if you're inclined to do so, and you get a theme that is provided to you at like 9 o'clock at night, and you have the weekend to come up with some kind of new service design or a new service idea. And you're really more of looking at the service culture of McDonald's, both in corporate, inside, as well as in the restaurants, and had the opportunity to co-lead a new service culture initiative where we looked at both top-down and bottoms-up approaches to how we could help change the service culture. And we created this video that we could share with people to show a day in the life of a manager. And one of the first things that we sort of looked at was all of the different interactions that they have, and a lot of it was with technology and with these large screens that hang up in the kitchens. We said, what if we took all of the screens away and the information was actually displayed in their workspace? And so that's kind of what this is demonstrating. We created a video that showed how this worked, and it also was bringing in some of the customer information directly to the manager. And so championing some of this work was really exciting, and then I had the opportunity to lead the Futures exhibit for McDonald's in 2014, where we brought a lot of those ideas in that video that you saw to share with about 15,000 owner-operators around the world. And it was showing different trends that were happening, technology that was being used, Google Glass, things like that. I think we had a Tesla instead of a BMW. But the real stars of the show were really meant to be the employees. And these were folks that I worked with. These were restaurant employees from our Romeoville store that used some of the theater and design thinking that work that we were doing to really create their own role for this new service that McDonald's was looking at that required table service. And so these people went through a 2-day workshop and came out with these videos that they created that showed their interaction, how this new interaction would work between a restaurant employee and a customer at a table. And that was really, really fascinating to see people that were a little bit frightened of customers, but once they went through some of these improv exercises and they had a chance to actually design the interaction themselves, what a difference that could make. And they were kind of the stars of the employees, and the managers were the stars of the Futures exhibit. All right, so I'm going to jump into Lowe's real quick. So I got this call about the time I was doing this, this futures exhibit, and the recruiter said, I have this client, they're interested in reinventing the home improvement space. Well, that's a really juicy problem to solve that designers have a hard time turning down, and I was really excited about that. They wanted to build this new CX organization inside of Lowe's. And so I just want to share a little bit about the team that we built. And IDEO was one of our partners, and Aaron Ferber, who was a former director at IDEO, had this to say about our team. And I think they were most excited to work with an in-house design group that they didn't have to explain why they were doing what they were doing, why they were doing qualitative research, and that they could also use us as part of the team. So we were out doing live prototyping, working with them, and that was something that a large team could actually accomplish working with an outside consultant. And we came up with sort of typical omni-channel service board type ideas, but what those turned into then were really fast prototypes that we put into store. And there's a quick video that talks about the process. And the way I used these videos was to explain to our C-suite and the leadership what it was we were doing and part of the culture that we were trying to change at Lowe's. And this gave them an idea of like how our outside design partners and our in-house design team, how we worked and how we worked together. After showing these videos in-house, we would take them to meetings and show people, and they'd be like, where do I sign up to go do that? And so we had a lot of people on our own team as well as in other areas in finance and our HR team, operations that wanted to become more engaged in the type of work we were doing. The other way that I used storytelling and video was to try and, the C-suite we could probably hold their attention for about 30 seconds. And so we wanted to give them an idea of what sort of the value was to the customers of some of these things that we were creating and that we had learned a lot about through the live prototyping. And IDEO does this nice job of kind of this scenario where you go to the future and you see like this TV commercial about this new thing, and then you come back in time and you're able to share it with the friends and family. And so they helped us produce this. It's not a real TV commercial. And I always have to tell marketing, we're not trying to get into marketing. We're not trying to get into advertising. This is just a way to explain and kind of tell a story. It was interesting. We had a space. It was a traditional planogramming space, and coming from McDonald's and the Innovation Center, I wanted to recreate something where we could have people in. And boy, did we! Like we put these experiences into the space, and then I think I took over 600 executives through these experiences, so that they had a chance to see what we were planning for, what we were planning to go into pilot into stores. This is just a quick graphic that shows the elements of this ecosystem. There were 6 different pieces of software. There was a mobile app. There were 2 different roles, if you will. One was a stylist, one was a project advisor. The project advisor, as you saw earlier, was on the computer. It was virtual kind of advice, digital advice. And then there was a lot of, we were experimenting with different types of social media. So could we create Facebook events that allowed people to put in natural language communications to create an appointment with one of our project advisors or stylists. And we were doing a lot of smoke and magic to make that work because we didn't have any AI to actually help us with that. But this gives you kind of a picture of also the branding that our marketing team started to work on. And I'll talk a little bit about this more, but we had to create these sprint teams to keep from impeding the people that were focused on the day-to-day business. And a lot of these projects, if you can imagine this one that I was leading, there was a second one that was an outdoor patio project. There were 13 other projects of this size in our portfolio. So the opportunity to really overwhelm the organization was there, and I think we did in several instances. So this is giving you an idea of what this kind of playful digital experience could be online. and it also connected to the this location, this space called Style Desk, where we had stylists that would help consult with you and give you advice. And here you can, there was software that that they used that worked with Pinterest to help people bring their vision to life. And we found that that was one of the most important things, was getting them over that hurdle of style decision making. But I also learned something that was kind of, we would call things like low-hanging fruit or infusion into the organization. Things that other areas, other parts of the sales team or the associates in the store could use. And it was just through observation. So one day I was watching one of our stylists engage with a customer in the aisle, and she looked in their cart and saw what they had. And instead of asking the typical question, which is the good question is, why are you at Lowe's today, or how can I help you? And most people will say, no, I don't need any help, I'm fine. But what she would do is see what was in their cart and make a suggestion and say, hey, I see you're working on maybe a bathroom kitchen tile project. I'm here in the store, I can help you match colors, paint colors, different wall tile with that. And they would kind of turn and say, really? You can help me with that? And then once, because of the way that the stylists were dressed, and because they had this space that they could go to and sort of work on their designs together, they trusted at that point that Lowe's actually had style expertise in the store. And we did a lot of measurement around the emotional state of our customers, and we did this pre and post, and we used photographs, of sort of a visual design technique of people selecting images. It was like every second or something an image went by and they had to click when they saw something. And it would give us their kind of emotional state. And people would pick images that were, I'm stressed, I'm confused, not quite sure what I want to do. And after the experience, they chose things that were part of our strategy, our pillars of strategy, which were, we wanted to help customers feel confident. We wanted them to feel appreciated, and they actually selected the images that were representative of that. So we were really excited about the results that we were getting. You're seeing the evolution of kind of the things that you saw in the video that we were working with the technology, like projection mapping. This is what it started to appear like in the stores on an end cap. And one of the things that I learned at the Institute of Design during my graduate program was this idea of the desirable, possible, viable model. And pretty much throughout my career, I was able to speak to the desirable part and the possible part with the technology integration, but I would wave my hands a lot when it came to the viability part. And one of the things that I got to sort of learn being inside of this large retail organization that was focused on really more profits was we had to make sure that we had a viable model, a business case for what we were building. And one of the things that we learned was they changed the measurement. They sort of changed the bar on us at mid-project. And so our business designer and myself got together and we put our heads together and figured out that if we added the kitchen space to this as well, and not just a bathroom space, that it actually enabled us to reach our goal as well. And so it would just go through the same kind of animations. Customers could try different types of materials and finishes and vanities and mirrors, and they could also work on their kitchen. I'm going to skip this and just talk quickly, because I wanted to have a conversation with you guys about what you're experiencing inside of your companies, your organizations, and how it might be different from my experiences of two companies like McDonald's and Lowe's. One of the things I think is when you enter an organization that you're trying to build a team in is, what does that train look like? Are they talking about profits? Are they talking about net promoter score? And I've been talking to some companies just recently, and it's very interesting, sort of a shift in mindset that I'm seeing. But the way you build that team and the team members that you add to it are really important or dependent upon kind of what you're seeing when you land. The complexity. So McDonald's was a huge, complex system, and we had to work very closely with our markets and the leaders in those markets, because they knew best about their specific locale, and it was a little bit different. Lowe's was aiming, I guess they were wanting to be a matrix organization. It was still very siloed, though, when we were starting to build our design team inside of the company. Organic growth that I talked about earlier, and this idea of sprinkling fairy dust. There's kind of a couple of different approaches there. You can acquire design expertise. That's happening a lot now with the consulting firms. But you can also kind of take this lean startup approach and figure out how do you stand that organization up inside of an enterprise. And that was really the difference between kind of McDonald's and Lowe's there, was we were really trying to build this pretty big CX organization and very quickly. And then balancing the portfolio so that that we didn't overwhelm the enterprise. And as I was mentioning earlier, we found out that a lot of you kind of built this vision and then backcasted, and people got excited though about the vision, and they were wanting to commercialize the entire thing. And we had to, stop people and say, no, look, there's parts of this, you can take elements of it and put it in, but we can't even get it on the capabilities roadmap for another 4 years. And so how digitally fit your company is also is important to know before you start getting people really excited about these visions for these new experiences. Team dynamics, it was really important that we as a team worked together, played together, and served together, and we found that that was a great way to even invite our consultants in and make them a part of our team, and vice versa. And so this was one of our consultants skiing on Lake Norman near Lowe's. The quest that we were on really required a lot of different cross-functional help. And so one of the roles that I wasn't that familiar with, it kind of comes from the .com era, was this idea of a producer. We called them kind of a scout, because they were the ones who would be out creating relationships, finding relationships inside of the organization cross-functionally to help bring the right people to the projects that we were working on. Job rotation was really important. Being able to have people that started out in one role in a really large design team and see something that they wanted to go after and help them get there. We were a small team at McDonald's, so we didn't do a lot of that, but we saw it operationally. We saw people come in from the field, come into McDonald's for 3 years, work at the Innovation Center, and go back out and share that information. And so I was trying to do that with this large design team so that we had some of those same experiences. And we had directors on a rotation basis that would come in from other areas of Lowe's and work on our team with us. And then something we always tried to do, it's hard as a small team, like we were at McDonald's, but to really capture and memorialize projects and have a database of those, that was something a larger team allowed us to be able to do. And so that was important for kind of maintaining that corporate knowledge. And some projects don't always, as we were talking about earlier, make it all the way through. And you have to maybe in a couple of years come back and pick them up. And so that was something that was really valuable that we found for our team to do. So thank you very much. It was great to be here. I really appreciate it.